Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me clearly? Can someone reply in the chat box, or you can just turn on your microphone and say, can you all hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Right. So today we will be talking about how we can do the scheduling of a project. Right. So this will we will talk about the different tools that we can use for scheduling. What are the inputs and what do we get as an output from the process of scheduling a project. Right. So before we go into the hard part, a little bit of history. So scheduling was first introduced by Henry Gantt. He was the person who came up with the Gantt charts, which is used up to date in project management. And so it was a simple and easy to understand tool for communicating the schedule to the team members and what they had to do within the given time frame. Right. And then DuPont came up with the critical path method. I think you have already covered that area on critical path method and the PERT with Professor Amrasen. Yes, I guess. Right. And then the US Navy and Booz Hamilton, they got together to introduce the PERT method, which used probability techniques, whereas CPM did not use any probability techniques. So these are the methods that were introduced. Right. So when we talk about scheduling, project management is not just about scheduling the project. So it is it's impossible to use the software effectively unless you have an understanding about project management. We know that scheduling, there are different softwares that can be used. Some are proprietary, some are open source, right? So in order to use the software, you need to have an understanding, and you also need to get some kind of professional training on how to use the scheduling software that you use. So who gets involved in this process of scheduling? So there are several groups of stakeholders who are going to get involved here. The first category is, of course, the team members, right? So these team members will be in charge of the work packages and tasks, and they have to report the completion, and they have to estimate how much time is necessary to complete each unfinished work package or task. So in order to do that, a team member does not need to have extensive knowledge about how to schedule the project, right? So they will be basically working on their own work packages and tasks and coming up with estimates based on their experience. So that is the first uh, set of people. The second set of people is the functional managers, right? So functional managers are the people who provide the resources that are required for the project, right? And because of that, they need to know that the estimates that the team comes up with and the availability of the resources are accurate, right? So they worry or say they are concerned about the accuracy of the estimates and how much of resources are available when the projects need them. So for the functional managers, it is sufficient if they have a basic understanding about how scheduling is done. Then the third person is the project managers, right? So the project managers will be the ultimate users as well as the owners of the project schedule, right? And they will be in charge of developing the schedule and monitoring the data that is given by the team members to make sure that the project schedule is complete and as well as that it is feasible. So then the project manager, once developed, they will use the same project schedule in order to monitor and control the progress of the project, right? And they will work with the functional managers when they are making modifications to the schedule as and when needed. So in order to do this, a project manager needs to have a significant amount of knowledge about scheduling theory because he will be the ultimate developer as well as the user of this project schedule. Then the fourth party is what we call the project office or the scheduling group. So this is a group of scheduling experts who have the capability of designing and maintaining the scheduling system for the project, right? So they will be these are the people who will be doing the calculations about the estimates in terms of cost, time, and also the people who will be creating the schedule for the project manager. Okay, so four parties, right, who are going to be involved in the scheduling. So each of these parties will require different levels of knowledge about scheduling theory. So why do we schedule? What are the goals of scheduling? So the first goal is you need to have better control over the techniques that you use to cope with. Like you will need to cope with certain complexities, you will have a lot of data, you will have to deal with tight deadlines, right? So these your scheduling will help you to deal with these situations. Then you need to have better methods for presenting the technical and cost data to the customers, right? So different different stakeholders will require different types of information, or it is the same information but basically it will be presented in different ways to different stakeholders, right? So the schedule type will be driven by the preferences and the needs of different stakeholders. If we take, for example, a functional manager, they will want to know what the resource allocation requirements are. So that schedule will need to show what the resource allocation requirements are for as information for the functional manager. A senior sponsor, they will want to know only the major project events and the milestones, right? So you have to prepare a different schedule which will give that information to the sponsor. Then the project manager, of course, will need the entire detailed schedule showing every work breakdown structure element, okay? Because the manager has to monitor and control each of the work breakdown structure elements and see how it is progressing. So you can see that different parties will need different types of data, and they will need for that they will need different types of schedules which will give them the required information. So when you are scheduling, there are a few questions that you will answer. So the first question is, if performed to plan, when will the project be completed? So you will get an answer on what would be the end date of the entire project as well as each of the WBS elements. Then you will have to find out at what dates should each task begin and end. So every task has to be, you have to specify a start date and then a end date. And which tasks are more critical to ensure that the timely completion of the project, right? So this is where you identify the critical path, right? So the critical path will tell you what tasks are more critical to make sure that the project is completing on time. And then you will have to understand which task can be delayed, right, if necessary, without delaying the project completion date. So here you are talking about the slack time that you have for every task in the project, right? And and you also have to find when the project resources are needed and when will they be released, right? What are the, how much of resources you need and when is it going to be available, and which resources are most constrained according to their task load. So when you get into answering these questions, you will end up having the complete schedule for the project. Right. So in our process of creating this project schedule, we use the work breakdown structure that we created as an input to the scheduling process, right? So the work breakdown structure should always be developed before the scheduling process, and but without trying to identify the sequence of events. So you don't want to understand what will be the sequence here in this case, but you will try to say come up with the different work packages and tasks, break it down into the work packages and tasks. So you need to stop breaking down work when you reach a low level, low enough level where you can do a accurate estimate of the cost as well as the time. So once you have broken down the work, you can estimate the time, cost, and the resources needed for every work package or every task that you identified. Right. So when it comes to scheduling, there are different scheduling techniques. We will be looking at Gantt and or what we call bar charts. Then we will look at milestone charts. And there is another method called line of balance, which is usually used in projects where you have a small number of deliverables that you have to produce within a given time period. And also you can use network scheduling techniques like PERT, CPM, likewise. So I think you have already discussed these network scheduling techniques, right? So we will focus on the Gantt and the milestone charts. Right. So let's start with the Gantt chart. So the Gantt chart, in order to develop this, we need 4 inputs, right? The first input is the project scope, which will talk about what are the what is the amount of work that you have to complete within this project. What are you trying to achieve here? Then you need the work breakdown structure of the project, right? Where you have broken down the work into smaller, manageable work packages or tasks. Then you need to have know the responsibilities of each team member. Who is going to be responsible for certain work packages or tasks? And the fourth input is you need to know what resources are going to be available for the project and at what time. So these 4 inputs will be required for us to create the Gantt chart. Right. So when we are developing the Gantt chart, organizations usually use this schedule management system, right? Some companies, in order to make sure that the process of developing the schedules and using the schedules is well planned and organized, they have a schedule management system. So the schedule management system will help you to identify what are the schedules that you need, what are the different types of schedules, right? And how are these schedules going to be used? How much of detail do you need in each type of schedule, right? And what tools are going to be used, what would be appropriate, and when will the schedules be prepared, what at what times, or say what deadlines will these schedules have, and how will the schedules be monitored and updated, right? So this will define how the schedules are going to be developed and used within the organization. Right. So we come to the Gantt chart. I will start with an example. So here you see the example of the Gantt chart here. So if you look at the left side column, starting from the left, the first column will give you the work packages or the tasks, right? So these will be the work packages or the tasks that you identified from the work breakdown structure. Okay. And then for every work package, right, or task, you have to determine what will be the start date and what will be the end date, right? So when you are deciding on this start date and end date, you have to have an understanding about the precedence or the order that these work packages or tasks are going to be completed, right? So we know that at certain points, certain activities will need to be completed first before another activity starts, right? So you need to have an understanding about the precedence of these activities. So for example, if we look at the first one, we have select concept, then we have design beta PC, then produce beta PC. So select concept, we can see it is bound to end somewhere in the middle of March. And then the design and production is going to start after that. So you can see here that there is a clear precedent. So before you design or produce, you have to select the concept, right? Once you select the concept, you can go ahead with designing and producing the systems. Okay, and along with those, you can see you have to develop the test plan as well, right? So test plan will take a shorter time, but considered with the designing and the production. And then when you go to testing the beta, right, you can see that it starts after the completion of design and production, right? So in order to test, you have to complete the design and the production phases. Okay, so this clearly shows us in what order the activities are going to be completed. Okay, so your Gantt chart will have the work packages or tasks that comes from the WBS. It has every work package or task will have a start and end date, and you need to identify the precedence of the work packages or tasks, in what order they have to happen. Does one activity need to be completed before starting another activity? Okay. Right. So when we are developing a Gantt chart, right, there are several steps that we follow. The first step is we need to determine the level of detail and identify the activities. So how many, so this will define how many line items you have in the Gantt chart, right? So you can stick to the same level of detail that you used in the work breakdown structure and the number of activities required to create the outcome for the project. So when you're doing this, if you have too few activities, if you have only a few activities in the project, it is better to break them down some more so that you have a significant level of detail involved in your project schedule. But if there are too many activities, if you have 200, 300 activities, then it is better to combine some of these activities to make sure that it is at the detail is at the desired level. So that then the second step is you have to sequence the activities in a logical order of execution. So once you have the activities, you have to arrange the activities in a logical order. So when you, in order to do that, you need to have a knowledge about the workflow and the priorities of the project. You need to know which activities need to be performed first and which ones come later, right? And you also need to have an understanding about what activities should be done first so that the outputs of those activities can be used in the subsequent activities. So this is talking about the precedence, right? So you have to get an understanding of the precedence, right? So if you do not say sequence your activities in a proper way, you will have to rework, and that will increase the cycle time of your production of your project. Then the third step is you have to estimate the activity durations, right? So here you have to consider the resources, the human and material, and also and you have to estimate what would be the duration required to complete every activity, right? So I think we talked about how we can come up with these activity durations in a previous lecture. And then the fourth step is you can draft the Gantt chart, right? So you can use a horizontal time scale and the list of activities on the vertical axis. You can list all the activities on the vertical axis again. And then first what you do is you will draw a bar representing each activity, and the length will be proportional to the duration of the time on the time scale, right? And if there are multiple activities that will form a phase of work, you can also add a summary bar, or what we call a hammock, right? So this hammock will begin when the first activity begins and then ends when the last activity ends, right? Then finally, you can check whether all the necessary activities have been included. Are they logically sequenced, right? And do you have the appropriate time scale, and do you have reasonable durations for every activity, right? And then you can make changes as necessary to refine the chart and get it ready to be used. Okay. So when you are developing the Gantt charts, right, usually you try to develop a Gantt chart that is lesser than 100 activities. So you will have lesser than 100 line items. So you can use a single Gantt chart as a primary scheduling tool if you are dealing with a small and simple project. But if your project is large and complex, and if it is cross-functional in nature sometimes, right, you will have to use multiple Gantt charts and find a way to integrate them together, right? So when you are developing the Gantt charts, you have to make sure that the entire team, the project team, is involved in this process. So when the team is involved in the process, it will lead to a better quality Gantt chart as well as a better buy-in, which means people will be more committed there will be a stronger commitment from the team members towards the project schedule as well. Okay, so right. So there is a small active exercise for you. I want you to try it now. So you have this information that is given. You have 13 activities. You have the activity description. The activity durations have been already given, and they have already also given you the precedence, right? So precedence mean that we'll talk about what activity needs to be completed before starting this particular activity. If we take, for example, let's look at activity 6, right? Training new staff, duration is 10. And as precedent, they have given 2, which means that you need to complete activity 2 before you start activity 6, right? You need to complete activity 2 before starting activity 6. Similarly, if you look at activity 7, precedence is given as activity 3. So this means you have to complete activity 3 before starting activity 7. Okay. So in certain cases, you will have 2 precedents here. So for activity 10, you have to complete activities 7 and 8 before starting activity 10. Okay. So using this information that is given, can you try and produce the Gantt chart for this organization, for this workshop? Maybe take about 15 minutes, and then you can, and please then send it through the chat box for me, to me. Any questions up to now on the Gantt chart? Anything you want to clarify before you go into the activity? All clear? Can I get an answer from someone? Okay, so if you have completed drawing the Gantt chart, please send it through the chat box to me. Okay, I have received only one one of the answers. What about the others? Are you all still working on it or any questions? Oh. Okay, so this is the kind of say Gantt chart that you might get, but there is a small error here. So here the training of the new staff has to start after the recruitment. So it shouldn't start here, it has to start somewhere here, right? So other than that, I think it's okay. So this is the kind of chart that you can develop in a Gantt chart. Okay. Let's come to the second type of second tool that we can use. This is called the milestone chart, right? So the milestone chart will basically show the milestones of your project against the time scale in order to signify the key project events and also to get the attention of the stakeholders. So a milestone is a point in time or an event whose importance lies because it is a climax point in your project, right? For example, if you are working on software development projects, requirements document complete will be a milestone in the project. If you are working on product development projects, the market requirements document, when you complete that, it will be a milestone. Okay. So milestone charts, you can use it for projects of any size to show the actual progress against the plan. And you can use this chart along with any other schedule to show the activity dependencies. So these milestone charts are usually used to show the progress of the project to the stakeholders who are involved. Okay, so this is an example of a milestone chart, right? So here you can see that the first milestone, which is requirements documented, that has to happen by the 31st of January. So you will mark that particular day, this will be the completion date. Then conceptual design complete will be by the 31st of March. Development complete by the 15th of July. Production review complete will be by the 16th of October. So the first shipment to the customer will happen on the 18th of November, right? So this is how we show the milestones in a chart. Right. So when you are developing the milestone chart, right, first of all, you have to select what type of chart you are using here, right? So if you are using a high level milestone chart, right, this will have only a few high profile milestones and you are trying to inform the managers or the stakeholders about, right? Or you can have a more detailed milestone chart designed to help the management of the work and say what to understand how you are going to manage the work in the future in order to complete the project. So the selection, whether you're going for a high level milestone chart. So if you look at this graph, the chart that the example that we took earlier, this is a high level milestone chart, right? So you can go to a more detailed level depending on the situation and the purpose of it. So first you need to select what type of milestone chart you are going to develop. And then you need to identify what are the key milestones, and then you have to sequence them. You have to put them in order, right? And then you can draft and refine the milestone chart, and finally you can finalize the chart where you list the milestones on the vertical axis on your left hand side column. Then you draw the time scale across the horizontal axis. Then you can select a symbol to show the milestone. It can be a square or a diamond. In this case, in our example, here we have used a diamond shape. Then you can place the symbols across the time scale according to the relevant dates. Okay. So this is a small question for you to create. So here you have the milestone ID, the description, and the completion time, how long it takes to complete it. And then you have the precedence as well, right? Which activities need to be completed first. So based on this information, can you try and create the milestone chart to visually represent the timeline of the project? Take about 10 minutes. I think it will not take that long. You can quickly create the timeline. Okay, so I think most of you all have must have completed it by now. I received one. Um, right. So what are the then I'll briefly go over the network scheduling techniques. Right. I think you have already covered that part, but I will just talk about it a little bit. So when compared with these Gantt charts and milestone charts, network scheduling techniques will basically give us some more advantages when scheduling the project, right? So it basically forms the basis for all the planning and predicting that the management will decide to do, and you can use it to achieve the time and cost goals as well. And it will also provide the visibility and help the management to control the project, right? And it also helps the management to evaluate any alternatives. So it will help you to answer questions like how will time delays influence the project completion, where the slack exists between the elements, and what elements are crucial to meet the completion date, right? And also it will provide a basis for obtaining facts for decision making, and it will use the time network analysis as a basic method to determine what are the manpower, material, and the capital requirements, right? As well as it can be used to check the progress of the activities. Okay, and it provides a basic structure for the reporting information, and it reveals any interdependencies between activities, and it also facilitates the what if exercises. So it will help you to understand what will happen in under certain scenarios, right? That is what we do in what if exercises. We try to develop a scenario and try to understand what can happen under these situations. And it will help you to identify what would be the longest path or the critical path. And then it will also help in scheduling risk analysis as well. Okay. So from the network representations, there is certain information that you can get. You can get an understanding about the interdependencies of the activities, what the project completion time is, what would be the impact of any late start or early start, and what are the trade-offs of resources and times. You can do the what if exercises or scenario analysis, and then you can look at the cost of crashing the project, right? If you I think you might have discussed the project crashing, right? What would be the cost of crashing, and any slippages in planning or performance, and also you can use it to evaluate the performance of the project. So when you're understanding networks, you have to there are a few terms that we usually use: the milestones, which are the events that will represent a point in the project or of special significance. Then you have the activity, that is the element of work that has to be accomplished. Then you have the duration, which is the total time required to complete the activity. Then the critical path. So the critical path, as you know, is the longest path through the network and determines the duration of the project. And this will be the shortest amount of time necessary to accomplish the project. Right. So the critical path method, you have already discussed this. So I'm not going to go into detail about it. So we know you can use nodes or arrows and determine which of these the activities that you have in the project are critical, right? And you can schedule them in order to meet a particular target date or and at a minimum cost, right? So this method was developed to use in large and complex projects, and now it is even used in much smaller projects as well. So this project manager can see the total completion time, understand the sequence of the activities, and make sure that the resources are available as and when needed. and they can monitor the critical activities to see that it is to see whether it is completed on time, and it will also, you can also measure the progress. And another method is the program evaluation and review technique, PERT. So the difference here is that PERT will use a weighted average to calculate the expected time. So here they will use the most likely estimate and the optimistic estimate of the estimate, as well as the pessimistic estimate, and calculate the mean time. And using that, you can also calculate the standard deviation, or the variation in this case. So these times are estimated by people who are familiar with the activity. And the PERT diagram, primarily it was used in research and development projects, right, where there is a risk in calculating time durations and where there is a high variability. And the percentage that is completed is impossible to determine except when you have a completed milestone. So these are the type of projects that will benefit by using the PERT method. So CPM was originally developed for construction projects, right, which are usually resource dependent and based on accurate time estimates. And also the percentage that is completed can be determined with reasonable accuracy. Okay, so there is another method called GERT. We call it graphical evaluation and review techniques. So this is similar to PERT, but there is a advantage because it allows to loop and branch and to do branching, and there can be multiple project end results. Right. So the problem with PERT is we cannot easily show that if a certain test fails, we have to repeat the test several times. So we cannot show based upon the results of the test, we can select one of the several different branches. But in GERT, you can loop back to the previous, say, activity and go through it again, depending on the outcomes. Okay, so these are the things that we have to discuss under scheduling. Do you have any questions? So if you don't have any questions, I have uploaded a small case study on LMS. Please download that document, please read through it, and there are a few questions. Try to answer them. If you have any questions, you can type it in the chat box.
Yes, question Mehret. This is assignment for this semester. Do you have any other assignment for this semester?
I'm not sure about it because the I have to ask the course coordinator, Professor Yapa. I will ask him and send you a message about it. Okay?
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm uploading the slides now to LMS. Okay, so the slides are available on LMS now. You can download it. Okay, I hope all of you all must have written some answers. So I'll just go through some model answers, answer for these questions. So the first question is about the stakeholders, right? Who are going to be involved in developing and updating the schedule, right? So you have the project manager, who is Dr. Pereira. They will be coordinating the overall schedule, ensuring the activities are logically sequenced, monitoring the progress, identifying if there are delays, and revising the schedule as necessary. Then you have the organizing committee members who will be responsible for the specific activities in the project. Then you have the dean and the senior university management, right? So they will require much higher level schedule showing the major milestone and approval dates and the deadlines. Then you have the functional divisions like IT, finance, and administration and procurement, and they will require information about when the services will be needed. Then you have the paper reviewers. They need clear information on the date on which paper will be assigned, the review deadlines, likewise. Then the keynote speaker will need the conference dates, confirmation deadline. Authors and participants are there, and then you have your suppliers and service providers. So when you look at the major project milestones, right, you have the first step will be to finalize the conference themes and tracks, then get the approval of the university. The conference website will be launched. Then you'll call for papers. Then the paper submission deadline will be reached. Then the paper review process will be completed. Then the notification of acceptance will be issued to the authors. Then the keynote speakers will be confirmed and the final program completed. Participant registrations will be completed, and then the final step will be where the conference is conducted. So if you look for dependencies among the activities, there are several dependencies that you can see. So you have to decide on the conference theme, the tracks, dates, and the budget before the university approval is requested. And the university approval may be required before the conference is publicly announced. And themes, tracks, and deadlines must be finalized before the call for papers. And the conference website must be developed before authors can access any submission information and registration details. The papers must be submitted before they can be assigned to the reviewers. And the reviews must be completed before acceptance decision. Acceptance decision must be communicated before authors submit any camera-ready papers. And the keynote speakers and accepted papers must be confirmed before the final program can be developed. Participant numbers should be reasonably known in order to manage the catering, seating, printing, and the conference materials. And then the venue and technical equipment registrations, they have to be completed before the conference can be conducted. Right? So if you look at the most suitable scheduling tools, the organizing committee will need a detailed Gantt chart, which can show the individual activities, who is responsible, the planned start and finish dates, activity durations, any overlapping activities, likewise. Then the dean and the senior management will want to know, would want a milestone chart, and it would present only the major events like the approvals obtained, the website being launched, the call for papers, submission deadlines, acceptance notification, registration deadlines, and the conference date itself. Then the staff responsible for individual activities, they will want a Gantt chart or a detailed activity schedule showing what are the tasks that are assigned to them, when they have to start and complete, what are the inputs, what are the related activities and deadlines, likewise. So a project manager, they can use a network diagram for understanding the activity dependencies and determining which activities are going to have the greatest influence on the conference date. Sorry. Yeah. Then what are the activities that are going to need close monitoring, right? So this will be activities like obtaining the university's approval, finalizing the themes, developing and launching the website, publishing the call for papers, completing the paper review process, communicating any acceptance decisions. So these are some of the, say, the activities that will need close monitoring. Because if there is a delay in any of these activities, it can affect the activities that come after it, right? Then how do they respond to the identified delays? So if there is a delay in university approval, they have to contact the responsible administrative officers, identify the reasons for the delay, and if there are any missing documents, they will have to provide them immediately, right? Then if there is a delay in the keynote speaker confirmation, committee has to establish a firm confirmation deadline and follow up with the invited speaker. At the same time, if you have an alternative key speakers, you should identify and contact them, so to make sure that it does not entirely depend on one person. And if there are delays in paper reviews, you can send reminders to the reviewers, right? And provide any clear deadline and provide a clear deadline for them to complete their reviews. If there is a delay in website development, the IT division should be requested to prioritize the functions which are important, like the calling for papers, important dates, submission instructions, and registration informations. Then the overall schedule response, the schedule should be formally revised rather than allowing any delays to remain undocumented. Then what can you do to improve the schedule monitoring? The committee can develop a detailed project schedule, which will show all the activities, responsibilities, and dependencies. They can assign one responsible person for each activity, which will show clear ownership and reduce the confusion. They can conduct regular progress meetings, which are usually weekly or fortnightly meetings. And they can use a digital shared digital scheduling system and introduce any progress indicators, like if activities, you can classify them as not started, in progress, or completed or delayed likewise. And they can create early internal deadlines to buffer against any unexpected problems. They can monitor important dependencies. A project manager should pay particular attention to activities that has to be completed before other activities. They have to maintain the risk register, right, to identify any possible scheduling risk like late approvals, unavailable reviewers, speaker cancellations likewise. Then you have to develop backup arrangements, right? Like alternative speakers, any reviewers, IT support, venues likewise. And then you need to communicate any changes to the schedule immediately. So any revisions affecting another committee member or stakeholder needs to be clearly communicated and documented, right? So these are the this is a model answer. So you might have a different version, but of course the concepts would be the same. Okay, I will upload this answer on LMS as well, so you can go through it as well if you want. Right, so do you have any questions? Any questions that you want to discuss from what we did today? Any questions? You can type it in the chat box. Okay, then if you don't have any questions, we can end the session for today, right? I will let you all know about the assignments though. I'll be here for a few minutes. If you want to discuss something, you can stay back. Otherwise, have a good night. And I'll see you when I see you later on, maybe. Okay, thank you.